okay? And the pages that we cover correspond with the inside of your cover. Tells you every single thing that we'll be covering. Now we have a new part of the book, and that new part of the book is called Hot Off the Press. We actually have an uploaded video for Hot Off the Press, and our goal in the classroom is to cover that during the quietest part of the program, which is around session L, okay? So we've kind of made an executive decision that L has the least amount of material to cover, so that's a good time to cover that material. And we're going to kind of stick with that just because our teachers are all used to that, and we just want to, once you get people used to a certain thing, you just kind of want to stick with that, okay? So that's how that's going to work. Are there any questions so far? Any questions at all? So Emily asked, why aren't there any online quizzes for the last few chapters? So the way we handled the last few chapters, we don't have chapters that go beyond 10, but we have material that follows chapter 10. And you'll see that there's online practice question codes for more than, you have one with 6s, ones with 7s, and ones with other numbers, okay? The other ones jump all around and go into what we call the Gaap part of the program. So that's why you don't see, there's not specific sections that cover just the Gaap, because then it's blended in. Because remember that through the program, we jump into the Gaap. We don't just, there's not one whole night that we just do Gaap. We'll start doing Gaap as we progress through the program. So that's the reason why you don't have a separate section for that, because we incorporate that. So you'll see that there's chapters 1 through, I think there's 1 through 7. And then the other ones are in the grouped sections that have different codes. So you look in the front of your book, and I have my book has green. I don't know what color is yours green? Let me know if yours is green, okay? Well, mine is green, and it says, welcome to Western New York School of Real Estate, and it gives you really great information. And it says, and it's got a big star next to it. It says, to access online practice questions, log into our website, and then you get all the highly confidential information that's just for our privileged students that are attending the program. And it tells you exactly what to do to get into it. So if you're ever doing this and you're having a problem, just text our tech support line, the 914 number, and they will help you once they confirm that you are a active paid student, because sometimes you have people that come back from many, many years ago and they just think that our tech support is lifetime tech support. And I don't even think Apple provides lifetime tech support. So I'm pretty sure we're not going to do that either, just based on the fact that we're not Harvard size as far as real estate schools go. So so you want to make sure you use all the tools we give you. We give you an audio CD, and the audio CD is the audio CD is for your car. But now, if you're not driving much because there's a state of emergency, let's say there's a state of emergency, for example, now or some point in the future, then what you can do is on our website, you can have access to a review of the same exact material, okay? But since these become public information at some time, I don't want to review all the steps here, because that means the whole world will have access to it. And that's just not fair, that's something special for our students. So if you want to get access to how to get the online version so that you don't have to use, let's say you're not driving much and you want to listen to it elsewhere, we can tell you how to do that. Just text our text-only number for that information. We don't teach to the test. So you should touch every page of the book. As we go through the material, I'm going to let you know what you should really focus on and what really doesn't show up too much. There's a lot of court cases that you don't need to quote by name, but you need to know what it has to do with, what the learning experience is from that. Tonight we have some interesting court cases that we're going to review. It's so exciting what we're going to do with the court case tonight. You'll never expect what's going to happen. It's almost as good as having a guest speaker, what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to have a guest speaker. But it's almost as good. So I would say you should know, but I can't, unless it's like, I can't tell you about that until we get to that, because it's like jumping all around. We want to kind of keep it to crossword puzzles, chapter end questions. You're going to make up flashcards. So you should go to the store and buy index cards. I'm not sure 100's enough, so buy 2. Never hurts to have extra flashcards around, okay? Especially if you make a mistake. And as we go through the material, you want to make up flashcards, okay? Anyway, so let's look at the first page of chapter 1. Turns out that it's also page 1. So we're going to look at page 1, chapter 1. The Department of State is the agency. I'm on the first paragraph of page 1. The Department of State is the agency that regulates real estate agents and brokers. You should know that. DOS is the abbreviation we use for Department of State. That's DOS, Department of State. Misdemeanor we talk about at the end of the first paragraph. So if you violate the license law, you can get a misdemeanor. Now, the only way to not get a misdemeanor is if you kill one of your buyers and sellers. Well, then you probably could get a felony. But interestingly enough, we have lots of calls from people that say, I have a DWI and it's a felony, or it's a misdemeanor, and how can I get a license with that? I will tell you a funny story, because I feel like I'm on fire tonight. I don't know, maybe it's the plant, I don't know. But so we got a call one day from someone, and I researched this. That's how I know this is true, what I'm going to tell you. And the person felt really bad because he was in a car with someone, and that someone had illicit drugs, and I guess the police stopped them. And I guess you're not supposed to have illicit drugs in your car. Even if your person that you're with has them, that's bad for you as the driver, even if you don't know about it. So he got a felony out of it, I believe. So then I told him a little story. And I said, you know, there's things that New York State has in place. And if you read our hot off the press or watch our hot off the press video, you'll also see it, if you don't want to read about it, about how to make a felony go away. Now, the more professional way of saying it is how to make a felony get sealed, which is great, because usually the only things that can ever get sealed if you follow legal stuff is if you've done something really horrible as a child or a minor, then things like that get sealed. But now as adults in New York, there's things that, you know, you can have sealed. Felonies and misdemeanors can be sealed. And a lot of the country, like lots of people, the numbers are ridiculous. It's like 2 out of 5, 1 out of 5. It's a big number of people that have criminal histories. So a woman, it was a woman's name. I hope it was a woman. Actually, you can't tell anymore these days. But this person was a hairdresser. So she had a license from the Department of State at one point. And she got upset with her client. She got upset with her client. So you're sitting down, right? You're sitting down? Okay. So she stabbed the client in the head with the scissors. Okay? Now that's all I'm going to tell you about that part of the story. But the Department of State gave her a real estate license. So if you can stab your client in the head with scissors as a hairdresser and get a real estate license, I think that if you have a background with any kind of, unless you've done, I don't even know that's so bad to me, I can't even imagine. Because I feel like this person would have a temper, temper problem, right? So like almost anybody should be able to get a real estate license. You know, the big thing that the Department of State wants to see is that you are what we call rehabilitated. They want to make sure that you don't regularly stab people in the head with scissors if you're a hairdresser or whatever you did wrong. You know what I mean? I know that's what I thought. I was the same way. Like April, I had to reread that 4 times. I was just like, how does this happen? So because New York is a right to work law state, like they want you to not be unemployed. for as much as people joke about New York and our benefits and things, good emojis, Gino. They want you to have a job. And if you're not able to get a professional license as a result of your criminal history, one of the ways it's hard. Now, interesting, you can stab people in the head with scissors, but if you, I think I don't use the word a lot, kleptomaniac, that's when you steal things from people, right? If you steal things and you go to jail for it, then it's hard to get a license in real estate because they figure, well, you're going to have access to all these homes and you might steal things when you're at all these homes, So, so that takes me back to misdemeanor. So in New York, you have misdemeanors and felonies, okay? When you apply for your license, if you have a misdemeanor or felony, you have to disclose it. Please don't not disclose it, because if they find out later on, and New York is funny this way. Unlike other states, like if you go to California, you go to Florida, they do an FBI check on you immediately when you apply for your license. That's part of the fee that you're paying. But New York, they randomly check people afterwards, and that's just rumor that they do that. There's no guarantee that they even check you out afterwards. They don't want you to know that. And they never told me this. I just know this, okay? So long story short is tell the truth, because if they find out anyway, if they find out, and like if you have my kind of luck, they'd find out. That's why you got to tell the truth about everything. They would find out. So it's even worse. It's like a double punishment if they find out after the fact, okay? And that doesn't matter how many years back. There's people that committed crimes 13 years ago, and if they find out after, it's just a big, horrible situation, okay? So in New York, if you violate the license law, you can get a misdemeanor, which is a maximum 1 year in jail and $1,000 fine. That's a traditional penalty for a misdemeanor, okay? But there's an extra thing that we're going to see in a little bit, that as a real estate agent, if you say to yourself, I don't care about $1,000 fine because I'm going to make a $50,000 commission. I don't care about 90 days in jail. I'm making a $50,000 commission. Well, there's this extra thing that all of our existing students will probably already know, who've already looped through the program, because we review through the program, is that you will also have to pay a penalty of up to 4 times the amount that you received if you did something illegal by breaking Article 12A, which we haven't covered yet. That's at the bottom of the page. So if you violate the license law as a real estate agent, then you have to pay 4 times the amount you received as part of your penalty. Interestingly enough, on the state exam, they do ask the misdemeanor question quite a bit, and what the fines are, $1,000. And then don't forget, it's a misdemeanor, a fine of up to $1,000, up to 1 year in jail, and then 4 times the amount received, if anything was received in the transaction. In the middle of the page, we show you the Department of State offices. They're not really walk-in offices. You're not really supposed to just pop in. Lots of times, the offices are part-time nowadays because of budget cuts. So everything's on the phone. And then if you want to call the Department of State, now that is not fun times. When you call Department of State, I swear they just sit there and they just look at the phone ringing, and like it's just awful, And then you get into the web, and don't think that you're going to pick up the phone and push 0. Oh no, they already got your number. They're not going to go for 0. Like zero's not your hero, okay? Matter of fact, that's the fastest way to land up in all like awful place. So you don't do 0. Just plan out, like make sure you're near the bathroom. You may have to use the restroom at some point. It just takes a long time to get. There's no secret on how to get through to them quickly. And interestingly, they treat us just as bad. Like the school Staff, they treat us just as bad as everyone else. So it's not even like they discriminate. They treat everybody awful. Albany number would be the best to call. Yeah, and that 518 area code number is the Albany number. That's actually the only number to call. If you call local, I think they bounce to Albany, actually. Yeah. So the bottom of page 1, we talk about Article 12A. You should know for test purposes that Article 12A is the main body of laws for real estate agents and brokers. That's it. That's all I got to know. Page 2, we talk about real estate brokers and mortgage brokers. Very separate. Just because the word brokers in there doesn't mean that they're similar at all. So real estate brokers are different than real estate salespersons. Those are the only 2 real estate licenses we have in New York. Real estate broker, real estate salesperson. A real estate salesperson cannot exist in New York State without being supervised by a real estate broker. That means sponsored. You have to have someone sponsor you. They're taking responsibility for your actions. That's why real estate is complex, and you just don't want to hire any old person to work for you as a real estate broker. You want to make sure the person's competent, that the person has common sense, which that should be part of competent, but I just want to be really clear. You want to make sure you can trust the person because, you know, they could do some, think about it. You can do some really awful things if you're an out of control individual. And if you need an example of out of control, just read a few of the newspapers around the world and you'll see what some of the dumb stuff people do. Like, it's like, oh my God, like the world is nuts, right? So it can happen in your own backyard. So it's important who you have work for you, you know? And a lot of people don't do background checks. I would never have people working for me without doing a background check. And that's not part, the state does not do a background check. You know, we have an internship program for our the Western New York School of Real Estate has the only property management program in the world, not even like in New York, but in the world, that actually includes an internship. And part of that internship, because, you know, everybody complains about the fact that, well, I can get the education, but how do I get the job without the experience? You need the job to get the experience. So we figured out, well, why don't we have an internship program? So we have companies all over Western New York that will allow our graduates of our property management program to actually intern and work 60 hours doing all kinds of different things at the property management company so that they can get a nice letter of recommendation. And it's like, okay, so now I've actually put real time in on the job of working as a property manager. But we even do background checks of those people because we don't want those people robbing the places that they're doing an internship at. You know, like, you know, we don't know our students that well to put them at that kind of to put the internship companies at risk. So it's just important things. But it's interesting the state doesn't do that. You know, you think they would. So in the top third of the page 2, we talk about all the different activities that require a real estate license. So make sure you read through that. Brokerage activities in general, brokerage activities is the bringing together of a buyer and seller in the marketplace. Buyer and seller can be interchanged with landlord and tenant as well. So you're bringing people together in essence for some type of compensation. You're expecting some type of compensation for this. And there's also exceptions. You'll see as we go through that there's exceptions to when you have to be licensed. So if you're working on behalf of a court, you're settling in a state, for example. If you're working for a municipality in a particular legal department, they exempt you from having to have a real estate license in those circumstances, okay? So make sure to read through that. Then we talk about mortgage brokers. So we have mortgage brokers and mortgage bankers. Very different, but very similar. Both are registered by the Department of Financial Services. You should know that for test purposes. When you hear mortgage brokers, mortgage bankers, you should think of the Department of Financial Services. They used to be called the New York State Banking Department. Then they decided to change the name. Great. Same name for 40 years, and then they decided to change the name. So Department of Financial Services is what we call that department now. Mortgage bankers represent their own products. If you go to Bank of America, There's going to be mortgage bankers that represent Bank of America products. If you go to premium mortgage, a mortgage company that represents multiple lenders will be a mortgage broker. You should know that for test purposes as well. That tends to show up on a lot of state exams. In the middle of page 2, we talk about the national mortgage licensing system. And in order to work in the mortgage industry, you do need to take a national course. And we do offer that program if you ever want to get involved in that. Right now, the mortgage market is absolutely out of control. With everything happening with COVID-19 and forbearance, 3 million Americans have taken advantage of forbearance. It's just throwing it's a mess right now. Rates have jumped as high as 4, as low as 3. That's a huge, like 1% when you're talking about from 4 to 3 is huge. It's not like, it's different if you're going from 10 to, 9. That's different. As a percentage, it's humongous. So it's a crazy time, it's a crazy time, but hopefully things settle down, we get back to normal. In the middle of page 2, we look at what does a licensed salesperson actually do? Well, a licensed salesperson, they assist their principal real estate brokers. You're considered an extension of your broker. At the bottom of the page, we talk about what licensed associate brokers do. The one thing that I didn't mention when we were answering Gino's question about really why bother becoming an associate broker, it also gives you the ability to just transfer your license into full status. Let's say you don't really want to be active as a real estate agent and you just want to be a property manager. Well, you can just turn your associate broker license into a full brokerage license and represent yourself, and then hire people to work for you, collect rents, and do everything else, and have your own brokerage essentially. Okay. Yep, have your own office essentially. Yep, that's true. Okay. At the bottom of page 2, we talk about the fact that in order to become a broker, you have to take a 45-hour broker course. You also need to have experience. You should know that you need 2 years of full-time experience to be a broker. So you work as a salesperson for 2 years in the active brokerage of real estate. That's how you qualify to get a broker's license. You also need points. I'm going to show you the points in a moment. You need to memorize the points as well. So we'll get to that in a moment. Please turn to page 3. So at the top of page 3, we look at the exemptions to the license law. I reviewed some of that with you, so give that a cursory review. You want to make sure your hands touch every page of the book. I will tell you if something's not important to know, but if I don't tell you it's not important to know, you still should know it. We don't read to you, because we're all adults, so reading to you is like, that's not what we do. No college level program should be doing that. So in the top third of the page, we talk about the requirements to obtain a salesperson license. You need to be at least 18 years of age. If you have a misdemeanor or felony, we already discussed that at length. Completing this course, 75-hour course, so that's a good thing. So you need to get a 70% on the school exam and a 70% or better on the state exam. We always encourage our students to take the state exam first. If you take the state exam first, you can take it for an unlimited number of times. The state generally only approves 2 exams per school. So if you take our exam and you don't do well, it kind of hurts your self-confidence. We've learned this over the years. For those of you that have been attending right along, you're probably familiar with what I'm saying. I've kind of mentioned that regularly throughout. So for those of you who are new, just know the goal is for you to take the state exam first. It's $15 each time. You go to eAccess New York, EACCESSNY. We have a great video, like a really Oscar award-winning video that's been uploaded on how to set up an eAccess account. I encourage you to watch it. It'll tell you what to do. It'll talk to you about an ideal email address to use. So we talk about an ideal email address to use as well. All of that's covered in that video. I encourage you to watch that. And That's how you set up your exam with the state. And you get your results 2 days later, and then you take the school exam. And you just contact us to schedule that. And once you're done, you're all set. 8 years is how long your certificate is good for the school. And 2 years, once you pass the state exam, 2 years is how long your results are good for. That's a lot longer than most other states. So you should know that it's $55 every 2 years for your salesperson license, okay? And you do need to know fees, and we have a page of fees that we're going to review and let you know which ones you see quite a bit. At the bottom of page 3, we talk about the different categories of broker licenses that exist in New York. You want to read through that. You're going to be a class 30. If you become an associate broker, which is really what I call a salesperson in disguise. A salesperson in disguise associate broker is a class 30 license. So that means that in your license number, there's a 30. It used to be 30, and then the first 2 letters of your last name, and then an X number of digits was your license number. And you had that for life. Now they've changed things around a bit. If you have a partnership business, then you would be a class 33. You do need to know the definition of general partner and limited partner. That's in the middle of page 3. Be sure to read through that. One thing you should know, and we review this quite a bit, things show up, just so you don't think I have Alzheimer's as I go through and you're like, well, I saw this before and I saw that before. Why does he keep talking about this over and over again? Real estate textbooks are written so that you keep seeing things over and over because it's a licensing course, and that's just the way they're all written. So the more you see it, just like, no, if I keep seeing it, you're probably going to really show up on an exam. We don't keep talking about things for no reason, okay? So you really want to focus on what's the differences between a general partnership and a limited partnership. Well, one big thing is that general partners are involved in day-to-day operations compared to limited partners who are not, who cannot. It's not even are not, it's cannot be involved with day-to-day operations, okay? Talk about limited liability companies at the bottom of the page. Give that a read through. Then we talk about broker license at the top of page 4. So it's a 45-hour course. So 45 hours plus 75 is the total number of hours you need to get a broker's license, okay? Now, some people took a 45-hour licensing course if they were licensed before July 1st of 2008. So in that circumstance, they're going to have to take what we call a Gaap course. A Gaap, G-A-P, a Gaap or remedial course is a 30-hour course. You will never have to take that because you're in a 75-hour course, okay? So all that information is provided at the top of page 4. The bottom half of the page, the Department of State maintains a list of approved qualifying continuing education programs. You really shouldn't go to any other school but our school. I mean, why would you, we love you. Why would you want to go somewhere else? We're going to take care of you. And the important thing is, it's like, this is all we do is real estate. If you go somewhere else, well, what happens if you're taking a course that's not state approved? This is why we keep you on the phone so long when you call, so we can make sure that you're getting what you need for what you've got as far as a license goes. And then we make sure to bring you up to speed on any changes that you need to be aware of. You don't even know how many people call us and they don't even know about they don't even know that ethics course is now every 3 years. It used to be every 2 years, but it used to be every 4 years. Then they changed it every 2 years. So now it's every 3 years, But these are the things that we tell you because this is all we do. All we do is real estate education. Whether you're a mortgage broker, appraiser, a home inspector, a radon technician, a certified energy auditor, a green agent, a negotiation certification that we have called real estate, it's called REMBA, R-E-M-B-A, Real Estate Excellence in Management, Brokerage, and Agency, all the different things that you can get involved with as a result of getting your license. The more you'll hear about as you get through the program, okay? So bottom of page 4, just give that a cursory review. Hearts are nice. Okay, next page. So the next page is not something you want to get. It's kind of like the same gut feeling you get when you open your mail and you see IRS. And I don't mean the stimulus check that people are waiting for. I mean like IRS in the middle of summer when you already got your refund check. This means that you're getting an education audit. And an education audit means that, so let me tell you something. New York is what we call an audit state. Other states, we send into the Department of whatever regulatory agency regulates their agents. We, 4A, we're on page 4A right now. What happens is so we let the department that regulates agents in their state know when people finish a course. New York is an audit state. They don't take the information that we send them and input it into anything. They do random audits. So the random audits, they're going to give you a letter like this, and we tend to feel that your chance of getting audited jumps exponentially if you wait until the very, very end. If you're renewing really close to the end, or you renew really, really early. Like New York will let you know about 3 months in advance when your license is going to expire. If you just hurry up and renew right away, we've heard, and it's just because, we take calls from people, we kind of pay attention. It's all we do is real estate education. It's something funny about why those people get audited. Well, it's because New York, they're not dumb. They sit back and they say they were just notified. Everybody knows that real estate agents, I don't want to say are slackers. They're not slackers, but they're procrastinators. As a matter of fact, if you're a procrastinator, you definitely are meant to be a real estate agent, okay? So we always get calls every month of every 25 almost plus years we've been doing this here from people that wait till last minute, and the same people every 2 years. Ask Francine, she'll tell you, every 2 years, they're always cramming last minute. I talk to people and I'm numb to it because I'm just used to people calling up 2 days before their license expires. But we have a program that you can take. You can do it in 2 days. It's so stress-free, no tests. It includes everything that you need. And we have so much repeat business because of that and the fact that we provide great customer service. But, waiting till last minute, it raises your heart rate. It's not good for stress. Even a plant won't make a difference to you if you wait till last minute. So you really should not wait till last minute to do your continuing ed. It's only 22 and a half hours. That's all it is. You have to do your continuing ed before you can renew your first license. And that first license, there's a whole bunch of changes that are coming up. So for you folks, anyone that's attending our 2020 or 2020 program, you're going to be affected by all the new changes, and then everyone else will be, because in July 1st of 2021, so that's July 1st of 2021, there's all kinds of changes that are going to happen. You still need 22 and a half hours, but the breakdown will change significantly. So the page 4B reflects what happens after the investigator gets back the results of the request to investigate you. And the fact that the person, they checked off the box here, did you, were you exempt, and did you do your continuing ed and all that? And it says here, a recent audit determines one or more of the following: that you failed to provide satisfactory proof that you completed an approved continuing ed course. You know what's funny is, I always say funny, but I don't mean funny, I mean like, wow, it's crazy. People have actually taken certificates and made fake certificates and submitted it to the state. Well, we must get calls about once every 3-4 months, maybe more frequently, from the Department of State, and they say, did you change your certificates? And then we're like, no, we didn't issue that. Like, people got a word that I can't say. I'll let you, it's not squares, but I'll let you use your imagination. Like, how can you, how dumb are you to make a fake certificate and you're being audited? Like, you really think the state's so dumb? But anyways, they do that, and then they get in huge trouble. Like, I wonder if it's more trouble than the woman that stabbed someone in the head. I don't know, but it's just out of control. So on the next page, they have a thing called a consent order. So a consent order is where the department, it's kind of like a plea deal that they do in criminal court, and it's where they say, okay, look, there's so many people like you that are breaking the rules like this, that instead of us wasting money on shots fired, there's so many people breaking rules, this rule of education. Like at one time, 50% of agents were lying, making mistakes, saying that they did their continuing ed when they didn't. 50% at one time, that's how high the numbers were. So they were charging $1,000, literally $1,000, bam, 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 $1,000 every time someone said, yes, I did my continuing ed. Then they audit the person and they didn't do it. $1,000. I don't even know why we should have a budget surplus like in New York from all the fines that they've charged real estate agents. Okay, so now we're going to look at page 6. There's a number of court cases that bring up really interesting topics. Stambovsky versus Ackley. This is a real interesting case. This is a case that if I would have answered Gino's question earlier, it would have completely ruined, it would have stole the thunder for my plans for you this evening, okay? So what I would like to do is I would like you to watch a video that I have prepared for you on this court case. And then I want to talk about stigmatized properties as a result of the, it's like the only Ghostbusters case in the nation, okay? So it's famous and it's a New York thing, go figure, So what I'm going to do is very eloquently, I'm going to we'll call this video equipment. I'm going to move the video equipment so that we can get you queued up for the little segment that you're going to watch and see what you think, and then we're going to talk about it, okay? So here we go.
The fact remains that nobody can know for sure, but that hasn't stopped one house from being declared legally haunted. The house is number 1 Lavender Place, Indiac, New York, and it was declared haunted in the early 1990s. In court. But who was being taken to court, you may ask? Were they trying to get an eviction notice for their allegedly spooky house guest? Well, no. The story is a lot more convoluted than that, and has now become one of the most bizarre legal disputes in modern history. It all began in the 1960s, when a couple called Helen and George Ackley decided they wanted to buy the house. It is a 5,000 square foot property, and very desirable. Looking at photos of it, it's easy to see why they bought it. It was built around 1890 and is right on the edge of the Hudson River and has a grand total of 18 rooms. Its potential made its status as a fixer-upper more than worth it. It also happened that while the 7,000 residents of the small American town knew all about the alleged hauntings at Lavender Place, the Ackleys were not told this before they moved in. You have probably all heard of the Amityville Horror, a house situated at the now famous address 112 Ocean Avenue, where the family who lived there were terrorized by the specters of those who came before, and they then very quickly moved out and made a great deal of money selling their story. Unlike most people, the Ackleys stayed in their house, despite reporting some very harrowing ghost stories during their time there. Helen Ackley herself even got an article published in Reader's Digest in 1977 called Our Haunted House on the Hudson. Once they learnt the truth, they didn't exactly keep quiet about it, and it seemed like the ghosts who lived there were actually friendly. Here is a quote from Helen Ackley in an interview in 1990. He was sitting in midair, watching me paint the ceiling in the living room, rocking back and forth. I was on an 8-foot stepladder. I asked if he approved of what we were doing to the house, if the colours were to his liking. He smiled and nodded his head. In her earlier article, she described the ghosts as gracious, thoughtful, and occasionally frightening, and thoroughly entertaining. Our ghosts have continued to delight us. Purportedly, their young daughter Cynthia's bed used to shake every morning to get her out of bed to go to school on time. They during spring break when she informed the Phantoms loudly that she didn't have to get up early the following day. And when she did that, she was allowed to sleep in. Helen always thought that the house had around 3 ghosts living there, and that they all belonged to the era of the Revolutionary War. And there are even stories about the children being given gifts of small rings and toys. Perhaps the spookiest ones come from a man named Mark Kavanagh, who eventually married the Ackley daughter Cynthia. He wrote in another article from 2010 called The Ghosts of Nyack that he had 2 spectral characters, one where he grew increasingly paranoid, hearing whispers coming from the empty dining room when he was in the house alone, and another where the ghost of a woman came into his bedroom in the middle of the night and sat at his side for a few minutes before drifting away again peacefully. These stories became so prominent in the area that it became part of the town's walking ghost tour in a place which already boasted quite a prestigious haunted history, it being just down the road from the legendary town of Sleepy Hollow, as featured in the short stories of Washington Irving. It was over 20 years after they moved in that the family decided to move out, and this was actually because of rising taxes in the area rather than because of the ghosts, and because with George Ackley's recent death, his widow could no longer afford to live in the area. I'm sure that if Helen Ackley could have taken the ghost with her when she moved, she would have. Reluctantly, Helen put the house on the market at an asking price of $650,000, which attracted Jeffrey and Patrice Stambovsky, a couple from New York City. Jeffrey worked on Wall Street in the bond business, while Patrice was pregnant and looking for somewhere quieter to settle down and raise their child. The 18-room Victorian house with a view of the river apparently appealed to them, just like it had appealed to Helen and George Ackley years previously. The Stambovskys decided they wanted the house and put down a down payment of around $32,500. Strangely though, Helen, who had spent the last dozen or so years telling everybody she could get her hands on that her house was one of the most haunted places in America, kept quiet about her ghostly friends when she was trying to sell Jeffrey Stambovsky the house, and fell to a nosy neighbor to inform the couple of the house's history, at which point they decided not to take the house after all, and didn't show up to the final meeting where they would pay Ackley the rest of the money. Jeffrey later claimed in court that he didn't believe in the paranormal himself, but that he worried about his pregnant wife's peace of mind when she would often be in the house alone. And that was the main reason behind their decision to rescind the deal. The failure to show rendered the entire agreement null and void, but complications arose because the house was still in escrow. Because of this, the Stambovskys said they had a right for their deposit to be returned to them, but Ackley refused to pay it back. The Stambovskys sued, and the Supreme Court eventually heard the case. In terms of real estate, this is an interesting problem. It often falls to the discretion of the estate agent and a property's current residents whether or not they need to inform any potential buyers or tenants about if a house is haunted. They're sometimes required to disclose any information that might affect the decision of the buyers, but because nobody can be sure whether ghosts even exist or not, it's really up to them whether they let people know or not. And they can always just lie later and say they've never noticed any ghosts, since it's not exactly the type of thing you could get evidence of easily, and certainly not evidence that would stand up in court. With that in mind, how did it happen that one lavender place was ruled by the Supreme Court themselves as legally haunted? Well, it turns out that because Helen Ackley published so many materials during her residency claiming that the house was haunted, that the truth didn't actually matter, because the stories themselves had most certainly affected the value of the property. She was very nearly found guilty of fraudulent representation by a trial court, but the court sided with her realtor, saying that there was no legal obligation to disclose the house's haunted status to the potential buyers. Because of this, Stambovsky was not allowed to sue for damages. But when the case went to the appellate branch of the Supreme Court, they declared that Stambovsky was allowed the remedy of contract rescission against Ackley, because the most meticulous inspection and search would not reveal the presence of poltergeists and the premises or unearth the property's ghoulish reputation in the community. They decided that Ackley had an unfair advantage of Stambovsky's ignorance of the property and the location, and eventually he was awarded half of the down payment he originally made, which is still better than nothing for such a ridiculous case. Stambovsky versus Ackley received national publicity, however, and it meant that people who desperately wanted to live in a haunted house flocked to the area and tried to buy the home for themselves. By 1991, Acme had finally managed to sell it, and had achieved her dream of moving to Florida to escape the harsh winters of New York, and it was sold in January 2016 for over $1.7 million.
I'm spooked to the bone. All right, good. I like scary stuff. It's crazy. So let me explain to you how that's considered a stigmatized property. Okay, now that, oh, by the way, that's the most excitement I could come up with short of a guest speaker that I don't even know who I would get. But, okay, so stigmatized property is a property where something happened to it that is less than desirable. Someone dies at a property, no matter how they die, whether they kill themselves, whether they just die naturally, anything can stigmatize a property. Murder is, you're obviously dead after you get murdered. So, like, if you get murdered at a property, that's a great way to stigmatize it. This is how it works. This is New York stigmatized property rules. Okay? So, New York stigmatized property rules. If a person comes up to, let's say you have an open house, and someone comes up to you and they say, has anyone ever died at this property? It doesn't matter if you know or not. You have to tell them that in New York, there's a specific process. You have to put it in writing, Mr. Buyer. You have to put in writing, and then what you do is you give it to the seller. Now, if you're not the seller's agent, then you don't give it to the seller. You give it to the seller's agent, who will then give it to the seller. Then it's on the seller to respond to you. Now, if you're a buyer's agent and you're working with people who moved in from out of town, and there's public information, like there was just like the Ackley, Stambovsky and Ackley that we just watched. If you have a copy of that Reader's Digest article and they're looking at that house, you can say, oh, there's information here you might want to take a look at. Because you got to remember who your client is. Your client is not that seller who you're not representing. It's your buyers, if you're a buyer's agent. You've got to put the buyer's needs, wants, and interests above and beyond everyone else's, including your own. That's what you do. So it's okay for you to disclose public information that you're aware of, for sure, but be sure that you're sure. Like, don't just pass rumors along. Like, if it's documented in the news, obviously we talk a lot about fake news nowadays, but it's very important that, like, you let them know, here's what I saw in the public domain. That's a nice way of saying it. You share with them information that's in the public domain, and then they can make a decision. And then if they say, you know what, I'm making an offer on this house, but I need to know, then you follow the process that I just described. And yeah, I would definitely Google any property and make sure that I know anything about. I would Google it, and I would put that specific address in there. And yeah, I mean, that's all you can do, really. Google's made it a lot easier. If the seller does not respond to the written request, can we advise our client to go to? First of all, this is so rare. Like, it's so rare that's going to happen that I wouldn't go crazy over it. But you can give them any kind of advice that you want. Usually, though, the best thing to do is say, I would talk to my lawyer, talk to your lawyer about it. That's usually that's the most safe advice, because you have to remember that you're an extension of your broker. Your broker might not want you to say that. So instead of asking me, do you think it's a good idea to say, can you go to the police department? I would suggest that. Ask your broker if he or she wouldn't mind if you said that. Ask your broker how you'd want them to handle, how would you want me to handle this scenario if it happens? I would say don't whip out the stigmatized property question on your interview because they might think you're a little crazy. So you might want to wait till after you're hired and then make sure there's way more important things to talk to your broker about because it's so rare that this will happen. But I would say to you that for the most part, just the process that I described though is not well defined. First of all, you're not going to be tested on it. You are not going to be tested on the fact that the process of how the steps that you go through. You're not tested on that. For some of the minutia that you're tested on, they might as well test you on it. I don't know why they don't. But that's the process that you go through just to stay out of legal trouble yourself. Say the owner was elderly and they passed away in the home. As a buyer's agent, if you know, should you tell your client? So as a buyer's agent, and if they did pass away in the home, how do you know? Are you their friend? Are you their neighbor? How do you know is what I want to know. If the seller does not respond to the written request, can we advise? Okay, so we did that. What if it was a drug? Yeah, meth labs are problems around the country, and we have rural parts of Western New York where, I think the ideal, I don't watch, I do watch a lot of things on TV about stuff like that, and they always seem to be in rural areas because I guess you don't want people knowing what you're doing when you do that stuff. So long story short is rural communities, it's an issue. I've heard of things in Chautauqua and Cattaraugus where, it's like a meth house because that's where you produce it and whatever. So, so to me, that's stigmatizing. New York doesn't give you a list of, New York doesn't say the following are examples of stigmatized properties. Like the ghost thing, somebody dying, getting murdered at a property, those are examples. They don't usually say drug, but anything that can stigmatize a property are typically what we call stigmatizing factors. Something that would make it less than desirable would be a stigmatizing factor. And sometimes they do ask, why are they selling the home? And yeah, they do ask. And it's not usually because of that reason. Now, if someone did pass away, they might not want the memories and see everything. That part makes sense. Sometimes they don't go that extra step and saying they died on the floor, they might leave that part out. So, and then, there's a lot of people that just don't care. They look at life and death as okay, well, you live, you die, you live, you die. It's it's all part of life. It's a part of the circle of life, So, okay, so are you good? You're good on that? That's yeah. But you just don't go around telling everybody what happened at every property, You kind of, and I would encourage you to ask your office manager when you associate with an office, say this is what I learned in school, but how would you like us to handle it? Obviously, when it comes up, offices have office meetings usually on Tuesdays, sometimes Wednesdays, and they talk about new listings. And interestingly enough, these things tend to come up when there's a new listing. Sometimes the listing agent will say, oh, and by the way, this is the property. And for those of you that know the neighborhood, you might know that this is where, Sally shot John. And it's wow, okay, now I know way too much information. And that would be a good time, especially because you're new, and say, we learned that this is the way to do it. You might be shocked, but the information you share with them on the way you learned it will probably blow their mind, because I guarantee you that they think they just need to disclose it. And that's all good. It's all good to disclose until someone realizes that wasn't right, and then they get sued. And then you get sued as the brokers that represented the property. See, that's the problem. If nobody knows you're breaking the law, then no one has an issue with it until someone realizes that, well, wait, I didn't like that agent, or that agent didn't do good by me, or they didn't sell it for as much as they could have. And then they're talking to a lawyer, and then the lawyer says, wait, what? They were telling everybody that someone died there? That's not right. And then that's how things happen, Like that's like the progression of how you find out that someone didn't understand the law. No, actually, page 6. We want page 6 next, because we were looking at court cases involving disclosing. So you're going to read through that. Read through the other ones there. You'll see let the buyer beware. The moment you hear let the buyer beware, you should think to yourself, caveat emptor, that's Latin. Caveat emptor is Latin for let the buyer beware. And so you want to go through that. It turns out that court case that's referenced there, you don't have to know court cases. You're not tested on court cases. You're tested on concepts that are related to court cases, okay? It turns out that if the seller was actively involved in trying to conceal a defect in the home, then it's not pretty at all. It's absolutely not pretty. And if you watch the video that we've uploaded on how to limit your liability in real estate, for those of you that are new here tonight, how to limit your liability in real estate, it's on our exam playlist. If you could include stigmatized property rules on there, so nobody can ever say that you didn't explain to them the rules. Perfect opportunity, okay? And that also includes the fact that if there's something wrong with the property, a lot of times people say, well, if I'm going to have a home inspector look at the property, then what's the big deal? What's the big deal with me, like worrying about something being, well, because home inspectors are representing the buyer, and home inspectors have all kinds of exclusions in their home inspection, because New York has a premise for home inspectors. We teach lots of home inspection at the school, and the premise is you're only responsible for what you can see. That's it. You're only responsible for what you can see. If it's hidden in the wall, or it's hidden in the ceiling, you're not responsible. Okay? So that's a protection that's written into the law for home inspectors. But when you're listing a property, you're supposed to know it a lot more than just very casually. You're expected to look at the property, and when something doesn't look right, if you inspect a property and there's a big bulging wall, you can't just say nothing about it. You have to ask. You can't assume they're going to just tell you why that wall's bulging. You have to ask questions. When things don't look right, or let me put it like this. When you get that gut feeling that something isn't right, don't ignore it. It took me till I was almost 28 before I stopped saying, you know what? Don't ignore that little thing inside of you that's saying something isn't right here. Don't ignore it. It's in real estate, that's your best friend. You want to fine tune and hone in on that gut feeling of yours. All right, so read through the rest of that. I want to talk about some legal tidbits at the bottom half of page 6, okay? So there's that first bullet point. Department of State can institute an additional penalty of 4 times the amount received if money is received during a violation of Article 12A, the license law. So be aware of that. You should know that New York's highest court is the Court of Appeals. Please know that for test purposes. Again, read through all the bullet points. These are all really important. You should know the definition of a tort. A tort occurs when someone deliberately or through carelessness causes harm or loss to another person or to their property. Vicarious liability is a little further down. The minute you hear being responsible for the actions of another, we're talking about the term vicarious liability. We'll get into that more as we progress through the program, but please read through that definition. Okay. Next page, we have a sample salesperson application. Everything is done online now. We don't do anything paper anymore. It's very, very rare for you to do anything paper. So this is, but read through this so that you should understand this information. It's all online now. So we'd like to present that to you, the whole application. The same questions that they ask here, they ask online. Okay. At the top of page 11, there's all the different fees that you need to know. And there were a lot of changes with fees. For example, okay, so for 20 plus years, the fee for a broker was $150. They added $5, like $5, okay? $155 is the fee now. That's what you got to know. So I guess it'll be the fee maybe for the next 20 years. $5 added for a salesperson license. So every time you renew your license, every 2 years, now it's $55 instead of $50. There's $15 exam fee. That hasn't changed. They did change a couple of these other little fees. They used to have just a $10 fee. They called it a change of association. It was for like anything and everything. Well, now they've elaborated on these items. So if you change your personal name, let's say you get married or whatever, or your address, or you need a duplicate of that information, it's $10 for that. If you change your association, in other words, the broker generally has to pay this fee. So if you go from one broker to another, that's a $20 fee. Just because they pay it doesn't mean you don't need to know it. So changing brokers is a $20 fee. The apartment information vendor license, that's a big change. It used to be $400, now it's zero. Zero for an apartment information vendor's license. And then they changed it, the termination of a broker. So when you terminate a broker, like the broker you're with, they terminate you so you can associate with a new company. So it's zero when they terminate you, and then the new company has to pay the $20 fee for you to associate with them. We have a number of miscellaneous items at the bottom of 11. Please read through that. We explain a little bit more about apartment sharing agents, as well as apartment information vendors. The big thing with those two licenses is that, and they're very rare in upstate New York, it's more of a downstate New York thing. A lot more of them are downstate. They find you, an apartment sharing agent finds you space within an apartment information vendor finds you an apartment. And why it's different from having, like you might say to yourself, why don't I just have a real estate license, is because your real estate license doesn't allow you to collect advanced fees for your work. A lot of people don't know that. They just go ahead and do whatever, and if they don't run into trouble, then they're fine, I guess. But you're supposed to be, you provide the service as a real estate agent, and then you get paid. But an apartment information vendor, they provide an advance, they give you money to find them an apartment, or to find them space within an apartment if it's an apartment sharing agent's activity. Page 12. Please know that apartment information vendor's license is good for 1 year. That shows up on the state exam quite a bit. We talk about the fact that dual licensure is allowed. That's in the second paragraph of page 12. Also, non-residents of the state may be licensed as New York real estate brokers or salespersons by conforming to all provisions of the license law, except they don't have to maintain a permanent place of business within the state. And that's all you need to know about that. Real estate broker responsibilities at the bottom half of page 12. So in bold and now when you see something in the book that's bold and italicized, that's really, really important. Okay? So from the sidewalk, you should be able to read the broker sign that has the words licensed real estate broker. Now, between you and me, a lot of brokers violate this. I dare you to go down the street, any main street, and see how many you can actually see the sign from the sidewalk that says that. Now, the rule, if you're in a lobby if you're in a office building, then you have to have it at where they list all the tenants at the front, of the building. But if it's just like a freestanding office, so many brokers in our area violate this rule. And then, Department of State, they kind of go in, they go in cycles of where they get real strict with things. And all of a sudden, they're going to be like, oh, you know what? I almost look at it like, here's an opportunity to make money. We'll find everybody. And then word gets out and everyone's proactive. So, again, Don't be reactive, be proactive. That's the best way to be. So read through this on your own. The bottom of page 12, please know that you need to keep all documents that pertain to a real estate transaction. And when I say you keep, I mean you keep at the office you're associated with. Now, between you and me, you might want to make copies of contracts and some things as proof in case you change offices. Because if you change offices, it's not always, you don't, how do I say it? Like, how do I say the burning bridges thing? Like, sometimes you're not the best of friends when you leave an office because something happened. And then it's hard. They don't want to be cooperative always to help you. Like, oh, sure, we hate each other. I will help you get copies of everything you need to get a broker's license. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that's going to really happen. So you're probably going to want to like have some copies just as proof of your activity, because when you see the broker's license, you need to show points. And if you're getting audited, you need to be able to prove that. So I would err on the side of caution and just make some copies of some things. Just keep in mind, you have people's confidential information, so you get yourself in trouble if you don't like really take care of that carefully, you know. Plus, if you sign a form with the broker saying that you're not doing it and you do it, well, that's another whole story. I'm assuming that the brokerage has no rule in place that says you can't do that. I'm going to tell you that. We talk about the Department of State has the right to just drop in and audit you, like with no record whatsoever, okay? They do an audit. They do escrow audits to make sure that you're not using the deposit money from sales that you've recently made and paid the electric bill and the gas bill and whatever else. You know, they want to make sure that money is separate and should never be used, even for a few days or weeks. And that's tempting. A lot of companies have done that. So they do escrow audits to make sure that you're not doing that, you know. In the middle of the page, we talk about the fact that you can only accept compensation from one party to a transaction. I look at it like you're happy to get money from one party, let alone, you know, I wish everybody was trying to throw money at us. It's not really like that. But just in case, you know, you're ever so lucky, everybody's got to know about anyone else that's paying you besides whoever's paying you. The bottom of 13, we talk about broker fast facts. You do need to always read through your broker fast facts. That is not just for brokers. It's for everybody, okay? Read through everything. You want to know about the independent contractors. Every January, end of January, beginning of February, you get a statement showing that's what you're going to be in real estate. You're going to be an independent contractor. Since hopefully you're going to make $600 or more, so you get a statement showing how much you have in earned commissions. Please know flip taxes. When you hear flip tax, you should think of co-op. Co-op is a type of property that we'll talk about. If you want to learn more about co-ops, Gino referenced an awesome video that we've uploaded about understanding condos and co-ops in New York State. Great opportunity to see some dancing boys and dancing girls in there, but you got to watch all of it to see it. You never know what's going to pop up. Know that a good faith estimate, GFE, good faith estimate in the middle of 13, good faith estimate of closing costs must be provided within 3 days by any mortgage representative after you do a loan application, okay? Read through typical prorations, and then we have reverse annuity mortgages. So typically senior citizens get these things called reverse annuities, reverse annuity mortgages. And a reverse annuity mortgages is where instead of you paying the bank, it's the bank paying you. And that's like a whole long process. You don't need to know anything more than that. You're not tested on anything more than that. But know everything we present here for test purposes. We talk about shared appreciation mortgage. So if the lender gives you a lower rate, well, in exchange for a lower rate, they share in the appreciation of the property. So this is a commercial property concept that's good to know as well. Package mortgage is common. Next bullet item. Package mortgage is real common, especially in resort areas where you've got condos that include furniture and personal property. Another name for personal property is chattels. The bottom of the page, we talk about feasibility studies. So when you see the phrase detailed statistical analysis, you should think to yourself, feasibility study. This would be something that big box stores would do when they make a decision to move into an area. So your Targets, your Costco's, your BJ's, wholesale clubs, they decide where they're going to move into a particular area based on the demographics. They look at what the frequency of traffic is, proximity to highways, density of the population, how changes in these things can affect. So all of this is part of a feasibility study. That's at the bottom of page 13. Then we have a broker application on page 14. You want to go through all of that. You do want to know the number of points. So when you get to the part where there's the letter A, it's page 18 in my book. A is where we talk about the brokerage of real estate. So if you just sell real estate as a typical real estate agent, you're going to use application A. If you get involved with property management and you don't do anything in real estate, then you're going to use B. So use B if you don't do brokerage. You use A if you do brokerage. But then if you turn the page, you see that there's a C. C means you did a little bit of A and a little bit of B, gives you C. That means you do, if you worked as a property manager, but you did sell some real estate. So what's different is that if you're using only Schedule A, again, if you're only using Schedule A, then that means that you only need to prove 2 years of full-time experience in real estate. 2 years experience for A. 3 years experience if you use B or C. Please know that. So 3 years for property managers or a mixture of A and B, then you need 3 years of full-time experience. Full-time experience is defined as, so it's 35 hours a week multiplied by 50 weeks. Okay? It does count. If you manage your own property, it does count. The problem is you're not going to get enough points. So if you do that and other things, then that can help you get points. Yeah, that can help you then. And you can use personal experience. Like sometimes we have people that come in and take the licensing course, and one of the things that they do is or their main job is buying properties, fixing them up. They flip them, they sell them. Sometimes they keep rental properties, and they just do that over and over again. Their whole life is just every 3 months they're buying, selling, and they get enough points. You don't in New York, you don't need a lot of points. Even with the increase going from 1 year to 2 years, not a big deal. It's like when you think of the power you have as a broker. Like you have a broker's license. That's a lot of power in New York State. You can manage people, and if you're like, that's a lot of responsibility that you can have. For selling what? I think we figured it out once. 14 houses gives you that experience. That is nothing. 14 houses is nothing. There's people that sell 14 houses in 2-3 months. 14 is nothing. So, but that's all New York requires. If you do the math, you'll see it. It shows you the experience points on those different pages that we talked about. But you do need to know points. So if you look on Schedule A, the number of points that you need is 3,500 points. That's how many experience points you need to acquire within 2 years if you use Schedule A, the brokerage of real estate. Okay? So 3,500 points for that. And then you know that for a broker it's going to be more. Okay? So that's going to be on next page 50. It's 5250. Okay? It's at the top of page 1919 in my book. So if you use B or C, you need 5,250 points. All right. Okay, so page 22. Page 22 is where we go. The first paragraph, we talk about some very important terms, commingle and conversion. When you get a deposit on a house, They give you that money. That money should go in a separate account, not in the operating account of the broker. If you put that in the operating account, that is called commingling. That is illegal. That's not something you can do, but that's something that your broker can do. That's what an escrow audit would catch. Conversion is the application of those funds where it does not benefit the owner of those funds. So the minute you take those funds and pay the electric bill, that is what we call conversion. That also is illegal. Okay? So understand that for test purposes. Read through the balance of page 22. A lot of these items we've discussed already. Page 23. So if a person doesn't pay the commission that you've earned as a result of listing a property for sale, or if you're the agent representing the buyer and the seller didn't pay the commission at closing and the buyer doesn't have any money to pay you, an affidavit of entitlement is what you can file in order to put the world on notice. It puts the world on constructive notice that a commission wasn't paid. But unfortunately, it's not like a mechanic's lien. You should know that for test purposes. An affidavit of entitlement is not like a mechanic's lien. It doesn't put what we call a cloud on the title. Because if it did, it would be great, but then it would be a mechanic's lien, and it's not. Okay? So affidavit of entitlement, please know for test purposes, does not put a cloud on the title. Okay? So does not getting paid happen often? No, thank God. It does not happen a lot. We usually get paid. I have never not got paid as a real estate agent. I sold many, many millions of dollars in real estate. Yeah, so that's the good news. And you know, I've had lots of students over the years that I've had this conversation with. Especially when we cover, you know, like we've had a lot of broker courses over the years. Nowadays, a lot of people take their broker course online because, especially if they take it within a few years of taking this course, we so over-prepare you for this course that you almost could probably pass the broker exam, the state broker exam. So if they take the online course, you know, we still talk to people. We get a lot of feedback from students, and it just turns out that we really, you get paid. You don't have to worry about not getting paid. You definitely get paid, okay? All right. Page 24 is next. Page 24. Kickback. You want to know for test purposes that a kickback is illegal. And if you want to if you tell all your neighbors in your condo building that if you refer anybody to me and they buy a place, I'll give you $100. That's a kickback. That's illegal. You can't do that. You cannot give a kickback. Okay? So that's defined in this first big paragraph there. The Duncan and Hill court decision is a famous Rochester court decision that involves doing more than filling in the blanks of a contract. We have a video on that as well, where we get into more detail. You never want to do more than fill in the blanks of a contract. Once you start doing more than that, you should really make the contract subject to both buyers and sellers' attorneys' approval. And then ask your broker how that should be handled. That video is really good to watch, and we get into much more detail. I just don't want to be redundant right now. Okay, so bottom of page 24. Please know Article 78 proceeding. Article 78 proceeding, so important. That's defined, and it's just a little trigger word, judicial appeal. When you hear judicial appeal, you should think of an Article 78 proceeding. Like, that's all you got to know. Now, if you sit back and you're like, well, Mike, I'd like to know a little bit more than just that. I want to know more than just passing a test. Well, of course, sure. If you're licensed, for example, there's all kinds of Article 78 proceedings, and I'll be here till midnight if I give you all of them, so I won't do that. But let's say your license is revoked by the Department of State, and you don't agree with the reason, okay? An Article 78 proceeding would be a review by a higher court, which would be the state Supreme Court, that would review that in order to see, did the Department of State act in a hasty way, for example. Okay? All right. Talk about continuing ed update. So continuing ed updates, that's all in your hot off the press. The hot off the press chapter follows chapter 1 in the book. Okay? We don't cover that this evening. We're going to cover that in session L, hot off the press. Feel free to read it though. I mean, I would prefer that you read things in advance of us covering it during class, because then you have better questions to ask when we actually cover the material. Page 25, we talk about suspension or revocation of a broker's license. Please know, if your license is suspended, that means you did something wrong. Oh, thank you. That means you did something wrong, but not really, really wrong. Usually your license will be suspended for a period of time of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, okay? Oh, I wish I had more to drink. But if your license is revoked in New York, then you have to wait 1 year to renew your license. That's a testable item. You want to know that if your license is revoked, you have to wait 1 year to renew it in New York, okay? If your license is suspended, it's going to be for a period of less than a year. You can be suspended for up to a year, but it's usually 6 months or less. They give you some examples of things that you can have a suspension or revocation over in the top box of page 25. We already talked about the 4 times thing. Please know with our did you know we have lots of did you knows throughout the book. It's like a bullet point, my version of a bullet point. If your license is coming up for renewal and you haven't paid your child support, that's like the big thing in New York. If you don't pay your child support and you're more than 4 months in arrears, they can not renew your license. Probably lots of licenses, but you're definitely your real estate license, home inspection, appraisal, all the different licenses like that. The bottom of 25, read through your broker fast facts. You'll definitely see some questions tomorrow evening when we play our game that come from this section, because there's some really good ones. Especially look at assemblage. Assemblage is really good. Declaration is really good. And, like sometimes people say, well, what are some of the things we don't have to spend a lot of time on? Don't go crazy with the Interstate Land Sales Full Disclosure Act. You don't have to worry much about that, okay? The bottom of 25, you do need to know the 7 legally acceptable reasons to get divorced in New York. And that concludes chapter 1.